It's Monday morning, October 12th, 2020, and I just finished up at the car wash with the Jeep. I've been driving around the backcountry and driving hard these past few months with minimal maintenance to the Jeep, and it's really past due. It's starting to look like a barn find despite driving it every single day. I'm going back out into the field ASAP, but for this week I'm stationary to see to some tender loving care to the Jeep, get some things fixed, and also tend to some life maintenance. So I decided that this week I'm going to take a look back and highlight some of the places and experiences I had in this series, V10. So that includes Arizona, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and South Dakota. This is episode V10E19, Northward Through the Basin. In May of 2020, my goal was to travel north through Bloody Basin and Tonto National Forest and come out in Coconino National Forest. After following the track for several hours, I happened upon this abandoned and vandalized Kia Sorento. I'm sure there's a story behind it. Maybe mechanical trouble and they had to bail, or maybe even it was stolen. Either way, I hope its occupants are safe. I followed Gaia GPS to this hot spring on the Verde River, and I had it all to myself during my 24-hour stay. The water temperature is very comfortable. It's definitely a warm spring more than a hot spring, but it's nice, especially on a hot day like today. Yes, I understand. It's Monday morning, and I'm taking my boat and some overnight gear down into the canyon just in case. I did see pictures of this place, and there are in fact pools of water down in the canyon. I don't know if they're enough to justify the boat, but at the very least it allows me to practice the concept of a pack-raft. Yay. Episode V10E2 in the West Clear Creek Wilderness area in Arizona. This was probably my favorite adventure so far in 2020. Cold. As it turned out, the boat was a necessity. There was a steep trail down to the canyon, and then I needed the boat to traverse long pools of water. Oh man. I passed a lot of other hikers, but most just had swimsuits and pool toys. I was the only person with backpacking gear, a boat, and camera equipment. I camped down in the canyon that night, and this scene here was recorded the following morning on my way back to the Jeep. I had my GoPro Hero 7 mounted to my head as I paddled my boat through the canyon. Episode V10E3, the difference of 10,000 feet. Here I double timed it up to Colorado because I was looking forward to exploring some high elevations, both in the Jeep and on foot. And it was approaching June. It was finally that time of the year where the mountaintops were thawing and the passes became viable. Or at least mostly viable. We walk from here. I have to be realistic. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the summit. I'm good for a strenuous hike, but I've never hiked at this elevation before. We'll see. At this point, I'm at around 13,500 feet, and I think I stop to rest probably every 25 feet or so. I take a breather and then keep going up the mountain. There's the Jeep. Take your time. There's two guys in front of me. One person coming down, and I believe two more at the top. There were a lot of other people taking on the mountain that day, including dogs and small children, and everyone was doing really well. I did it! I really had my doubts, but I made it to the top. Mount Antero, 14,265 feet. This is my first 14er, and of course I managed to drive 3/4 of the way up, but it is no less amazing, and I'm glad because I don't think I would have been able to hike the whole distance. Episode V10E4, and here I am taking my Kokopelli Rogue Light pack-raft out for a spin. It's easier to inflate using the air compressor, but it's designed for backpacking, so it needs very little wind power to inflate. It's about the same size as a sleeping bag and a stuff sack when it's rolled up, and it weighs only 5 pounds. I've been looking forward to this very moment since I got this pack-raft. Just floating around on a mountain lake. It's so beautiful, the view is phenomenal. I found this spot simply by studying Gaia GPS this past weekend. I was in Salida and looking for forest roads into the mountains that led to a body of water. And here we are. I love finding old structures like this on public land. Many of them are preserved by the Forest Service, and they sometimes have logbooks inside them, which you can sign, or even bunks where you can spend the night. Please respect and preserve this cabin and the surrounding land so that they can be enjoyed for years to come. This logbook was brought up on September 24th, 2019. It's currently June 2020. And I don't have a writing utensil. Cottonwood Pass. Amazing view, and you can get up here in any vehicle. Now I'm going to go down the other side of the mountain and keep an eye out for forest roads. And I think I see my turnoff about 2,000 feet down. Episode V10E5, and my goal here was to go from Cottonwood Pass to Crested Butte by following all dirt roads and primitive tracks. It ended up being a very gnarly and scenic overland route. Sleet is collecting on the awning. That's no good. This is getting really heavy. My Jeep is equipped with a 3.5-inch lift and 35-inch tires, and for most of my travels that feels excessive, except not in Colorado. In Colorado's backcountry, I use every single inch of that additional ground clearance. This mountain track is just within the limits of my Jeep. It's not that the Jeep isn't capable and even capable of more. It's that I don't really consider this a wheeling Jeep. This is a high mobility camper. And that being said, there's a matter of practicality here. On a vehicle running 37 or 38-inch tires, you could be a fair bit relaxed on this trail. But on a moderately lifted Jeep running 35-inch tires, I have to be very careful picking my lines. Episode V10E6, and here I'm exploring Colorado's mountains north of Crested Butte. We have some avalanche damage on the road ahead. I think there's a way through it and enough of it has been cleared, but I see some cars parked at the base, so I'm not sure. We'll soon find out. If you guys choose to go through, I recommend it.
Yeah, I think we might try it after you come through.
Having just come out of the mountains for the first time in days, I could not resist this barbecue joint in Marble, Colorado. It's super peaceful here. The birds are singing, where they were just singing. I'm at 11,300 feet. I'm going to sleep well tonight. My goal for this week is to focus on Silverton, Colorado, which is south of Ouray. I've never been there before, but I looked at the map and there's a lot of BLM routes, forest routes, so plenty of things to discover and adventures to be had. Episode V10E19 in early July 2020, and it was my first week in the San Juan Mountains in the vicinity of the Alpine Loop. I was out exploring around Silverton looking for some best-kept secrets. What I found were some picture-perfect alpine lakes. And despite being July and the heat of summer, the water was far too cold for a swim, but not too cold for a float. This particular lake east of Silverton was not on Gaia GPS's base map, so it was a pleasant surprise when I got there and I decided to pop the camper for the night. Episode V10E8 kicks off at an old town site near Lake City, Colorado. In the early 20th century, it wasn't uncommon for mountain towns to pop up during a mining boom and then later diminish, leaving only what's left of their structures and a snapshot of their history. I'm backpacking into American Basin, and this basin is popular for its wildflowers. But the weather's been on and off. It was just raining a little bit ago, so I'm using the GoPro for now. I did in fact check the weather forecast before I came up here, and it said partly cloudy. The historic town site of Animas Forks, a popular destination on the west side of Cinnamon Pass. Nice feng shui, but a bit of a fixer-upper. It was just a breeze, I think, but this door was moving very haphazardly. Hi. Wow. Hi. The road across Ophir Pass is not too technical. You can conquer it in most stock trucks and SUVs. But the west side consists of some amazing views and a really stunning shelf road that traverses the side of the mountain. Episode V10E19. It's now late July and we're pushing farther north into Medicine Bow National Forest in southern Wyoming. I followed a lightly traveled forest road and it brought me to this old cabin that looks like it had collapsed years ago under the weight of a heavy snowfall. Passenger side rear is sunk pretty deep. I think that's going to be the biggest problem. It looks like I get to use the winch to get unstuck for the very first time. And the bummer about this is it was avoidable. I was crossing some mud without scouting it out first, and now the rear bumper is pinned in front of a rock. So even though I can't proceed forward, I can't proceed backward either. After spending time in Medicine Bow National Forest in Wyoming, I had to travel to Oregon to prepare for a service for my camper. So I drove 10 hours into Malheur National Forest in eastern Oregon. It's episode V10E10, and I'm now on the coast of Oregon.
Temperate rainforests that are prominent in the Pacific Northwest of the US are my favorite biomes to both photograph and explore. I can't get enough of the lush vegetation, the atmosphere, or the mystique.
Since I'm on a mountain on the coast, I expected to wake up to dense fog, and I love it when that happens because it's very atmospheric. I grew up to movies like E.T. and The Goonies, so I have a soft spot for deep, dark rainforests. They just incite my imagination.
This entire week in Oregon, the light was phenomenal, and all the places I visited were lush and green and beautiful, making this episode my favorite visually for this entire V10 series. I kick off episode V10E19 in Mount Hood National Forest, which is somewhat more inland in Oregon to the east.
Bad road. That's vague. What denotes a bad road? Looking at the contours and based on what I already passed, I suspect that there's a section that's just a really narrow shelf. And if that's the case, I'm not playing around with that. Sketchy shelf roads scare me. But other than that, I can only speculate as to why this is a bad road. Maybe deadfall. If it's deadfall, that's going to be pretty lame.
I'm not gonna lie, when I see a sign that says bad road, that just makes it more enticing to me. What I really need is a detailed explanation that explains why the road is impassable. Otherwise, I'm gonna explore the road anyway to find out for myself and to see if it really is bad.
Not viable. This is what the sign meant by bad road. The earth essentially reclaims the road, and now it's only suitable for adventure bikes, at least up to this point. I don't know what happens if you go farther along.
At Ursa Minor in Portland, Oregon, getting new tent fabric installed. My old tent fabric wasn't too bad. It was still keeping the water out, but it had some small cuts by the hinges, and the zippers were failing after 4 years of frequent use.
Hang on, it's in the cavity. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Here we go. Drop down in the hole. Let me.
John did a great job. He got me in and out in an afternoon, and the camper is as good as new. Immediately after leaving Ursa Minor in Oregon, I drove up to Kootenai National Forest in northern Montana, and that's where we're at right now in episode V10E12.
Are you filming him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. That's good enthusiasm there, buddy.
Good
Nice.
job.
That's it, no more.
There's a logbook to sign at this wilderness cabin, and we already signed our names in.
You're probably curious. I started seeing someone back in June of 2020, and while she takes part in videos from time to time, we're keeping things private for now, as we grow together.
All right, so what kind of cut?
Flank steak.
Flank steak topped with chimichurri
Uh-huh.
and broccoli cauliflower rice
Yep.
with cheese and mashed potatoes.
Yep.
Going right for the steak.
Blue sky that way, but in the meantime...
Wednesday morning, got hit by a pretty decent rain squall. Making coffee, deployed the awning really quickly just so we could have a little bit of shelter.
It's in a bit of a mess.
Not to mention the mouse.
Oh, mention the
It's
mouse
still
again.
there. We need to do a deep dive to try to figure out where it is, where it's trying to take up residence.
But first,
Coffee.
yeah.
Wow.
Mother Nature.
Polebridge, Montana is a popular backcountry community that's located on the western border of Glacier National Park. During our visit to Glacier National Park in V10E13, there were distant wildfires that were creating a dense haze in the atmosphere, but despite this, it was still very beautiful.
This is a type of thing that I love to stumble upon out in the wild. Absolutely exquisite.
That is Finnegan. And he's 11-year-old rescue, and we think he's part Shiba Inu and part Corgi.
Lots of plants and chicken. And Cajun spice.
Our neighbor is strumming away at his guitar acoustic, and it's just really soothing. It's the ideal public campground type of experience.
The base of the hike up to Northwest Peak in northern Montana is marred by the Davis Fire, which was a wildfire that occurred back in 2018. The hike was a 5-mile round trip. It culminated at 2,347 feet, and it featured a Forest Service shelter at the top of the mountain.
It's Wednesday night, and after our hike, we worked our way a little bit farther up the mountain in the Jeep, and we camped at the side of the forest road on a sort of a pass. So we have this great view of Canada to the northwest, and we're right among the burned out sticks. So it's really eerie, but really serene at the same time. This is creepy. The one last thing that I have to do on my computer today is upload last week's GPX tracks to Dropbox. And I use a program called GPX Editor on my Mac to take the master GPX file that I downloaded from Gaia GPS and break my data out into multiple files. So I put all the hiking tracks in one file, I put all the street tracks in another file, 4x4 tracks, dirt tracks, campsite waypoints, and so on. I do this to make things just a little bit easier for my Patreon subscribers, so if they're only interested in downloading my camping waypoints, then they don't have to download a bunch of bulky track logs too.
It's now episode V10E19, and we're exploring the ghost town of Garnet, Montana, which isn't far to the east of Missoula.
Garnet, Montana came to be in the 1860s due to a gold mining boom. It prospered for about 40 years, and then in the early 20th century the town diminished. A lot of the buildings were razed by fire. It bounced back a little bit in the 1930s, but then declined again. It's become what you see here today. A beautiful and well cared for glimpse into history.
It's early September 2020, and I'm walking around Bozeman with pizza on my mind. V10E19, and in this episode I make a bad judgment call and venture deep into the Absorka Mountains in southern Montana during inclement weather. 2 days prior, we were in the midst of a heat wave and it was 90 degrees Fahrenheit, so I was pretty naive about the potential impact of a mountain storm. Here I'm descending into a mountain basin, and less than an hour later I'm unable to drive back up this very track.
I blew it. I made a totally bad call, and the road down into the basin, by the time I got back to it, there was too much snow, and I was slipping and sliding all over the place. I couldn't claw up under the rocks. So I backed down, pulled the Jeep into a flat spot, and the snow, it's still out there accumulating. I'm not out of communication. I have connectivity via inReach, and I've reported my location. So I'm not in danger personally. I have warmth, food, and all the supplies I need, just, being self-sufficient. However, it's yet to be determined if I'm going to need extraction or not. And that's what I'm anxious about.
It took about 6 or 7 winch pulls, but I was able to safely extract myself from the basin. I was nervous the whole time because the winch was pretty much the only answer that I had for the problem. Otherwise, I would have had to wait for the snow to thaw or to summon aid. There was no room for things to go sideways.
So far, so good descending the mountain. I still have some snowy rocks to contend with, but the basin, the hard part is done. When it comes to the weather, take Montana very, very seriously. That figures. This is fantastic. I really, really lucked out tonight. Probably one of my very best campsites ever. I'm serious. At least top 5. There's a primitive stone fire ring. There's towering cliffs all around me. There's cliffs there. There's cliffs over there. There's cliffs right up there. And I'm parked right up against a crystal clear river.
One week later in V10E19, the snow is gone and I'm exploring the mountains of northwestern Wyoming, just east of Yellowstone National Park. This climb didn't look too difficult from afar, but the loose shale was working against me. So as I approach the top, I jam my lockers on really quickly to get past these protruding rocks. This episode really highlights the geographic diversity of Wyoming, as I transition from mountain woodlands into badlands with hoodoos and sandstone formations.
BLM roads are like a box of chocolates. Some of them can be nothing more than a faint pair of tracks on the verge of being reclaimed by nature. Others can be well-worn thoroughfares, while others still can pass through landscapes that are nothing short of a visual masterpiece.
What I have the most trouble with is nailing medium rare. Unfortunately, this is medium, but it is delicious. Fantastic. It's episode V10E19, and we are in Shoshone National Forest west of Lander, Wyoming, currently exploring a gnarly track that's giving us a bit of a run for our money.
This track degraded so significantly. It was just a very mild, rockless roller coaster to start, and now it's a steady rock garden for almost 2 miles. Oh, it's not so bad once you see it straight on.
You say so.
Ooh, I've got LTE.
Good. We can call somebody when we're like, well, we live here now.
The track started to get too rough to solo, so we stopped to camp, enjoyed a marvelous sunset in a beautiful wilderness setting. Shoshone National Forest is dotted with these impressive rock formations that are a ton of fun to climb on and to explore. I spent the remainder of the week exploring the public land south of Lander, Wyoming, looking for best-kept secrets and long-forgotten places. Episode V10E18 kicks off in Castle Gardens Recreation Area in northern Wyoming. I found this place rather by accident. I was out exploring public land looking for a place to spend the weekend, and I stumbled upon this recreation area, complete with metal fire rings, picnic tables, shelters, and just this phenomenal landscape.
Such a radical moonscape. There was a footpath up here from the camping and recreation area, and then just a little bit of rock scrambling to see the good stuff.
Passing through Bighorn National Forest, I happen upon Sheep Mountain Fire Lookout. And a lot of these old lookouts you can now rent on recreation.gov for a holiday or a weekend camping experience. And what an amazing experience that must be.
This is really good. It's crispy and very flavorful. It's a mixture of shredded cheese, pizza sauce on mini nan rounds, spinach, and just a dash of oregano. That was it, the V10 series between May and October of 2020. Next week, it's back to real-time adventure as usual, as I kick off Series V11 and make tracks toward warmer regions. V11 I'm going to keep pretty fluid as we approach the holidays. I'm going to do some exploring in the west and the southwest, but I am also going to stagger some episodes and make some time to visit my family back east. I tried to get the Jeep in for service this week while I was stationary, and I stopped by a couple dealers, but they were a few weeks out for appointments, and yet again, I'm pushing it back. Aside from an annoying warning light and a broken power window, RNG's not doing too bad. Still running great, and I think I can put off service a little bit longer until the holidays. I'm going to call that a wrap and get the show on the road, but as always, thank you for watching. The next episode is going to be next week on either Friday, October 23rd, or Saturday morning, October 24th, 2020. I'll catch up with you all then.